Before we start the video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Fyodor Ivanovich habitually changed the water, put fresh bright red carnations, stroked gently the photo of the woman on the headboard of the monument, sat down on the bench, sighed heavily. Well, hello, Ninotchka. How are you here without me? It's Sunday. I decided to come to you early. I missed you a lot. Here. I bought fresh carnations for you today. Sorry, there were no roses. We're doing very well. Alesya is a kind soul, as always. She ran off to save a kitten that was run over on the road. She's kind, our girl, just like you. The only answer was the wind and the noise of the trees. The man, despite his respectable age, 60 years old this year, as it were, worked as a practicing surgeon in a private clinic. Over the years of practice, he had honed his skills to the point that he performed operations with his eyes almost closed. He was valued and respected in the team. His appointments were booked months in advance. A year ago in their family there was a terrible tragedy. The beloved wife died suddenly. One day in the summer heat she came to the market with groceries, put the bag, sat down in a chair, groaned, grabbed her chest. And that was it. My heart stopped suddenly. It was such a cruel blow, from which Fyodor Ivanovich could not recover until now. After all, he and his wife 40 years, soul to soul, as needle and thread. All the sorrows and joys they shared equally. How he scolded himself for not examining her properly. It seemed to him that it was his fault, that he had not seen enough, had not given enough. Though he realized with his mind that she was gone, but still, every weekend he was taking her to his Ninotchka. His husband told her about everything, consulted her and believed she heard him. The daughter was worried at first, dragged him to psychologists, afraid that my father was insane with grief, but then she put up with it. Well, let him go, if it makes him feel better. After all, everyone goes through his grief differently. She also missed her mother, but unlike her father, she could not go to the cemetery and look at her picture on the grave. Her heart was torn by the loss, so she preferred to remember her alive. The couple had Alesya late, at 40, when they had given up hope. His wife had problems concerning women. She was very worried that she could not give birth, and Fyodor just loved her, and believed that if it was destined, the baby would come. When Nina began to feel bad, she put it down to tiredness from work, and only when the baby started pushing did she understand what was wrong. People I knew and colleagues said, "You're crazy to give birth at this age." But the couple did not listen to anyone. There was no limit to their joy. The girl was pampered and nurtured. She was given an excellent higher education in economics. Alesya grew up to be kind, gentle, and sensitive. She adored animals since childhood, and as an adult she became a volunteer at the call of her heart. She selflessly nursed sick or wounded kittens and puppies, and always put them in good hands. They had a gorgeous cat named Pushak and a lame dog named Zhulka, who grew out of the same foundlings in their apartment. Strange as it may seem, they got along well together, got along great, even ate from the same bowl competitively. Since recently Alesya was very different. She did not walk, but fluttered, laughed, and was always in high spirits, often twisting in front of the mirror, putting on her best clothes, which she had never done before. In the evenings she began to disappear. A huge jeep would come for her, and she would return late with huge bunches of roses, and she just glowed with happiness. Fyodor Ivanovich worriedly grumbled, "Daughter, let's not be long. Is he at least decent? Maybe you'll introduce him?" But Alesya smiled enigmatically and answered, "Daddy, don't worry. He's not just good, he's the best. And the richest in our area, by the way. At the same time he is decent, does not allow anything extra. Voronov Andrei, everyone knows his father." Fyodor Ivanovich clutched his heart and settled down. "Daughter, he's a notorious womanizer. He spends his father's millions to the right and to the left. And what about him? Shik. Why do you need this pompous turkey? Can't we live without his money? We're not poor, are we?" Alesya frowned and said offensively, "Come on, Dad, enough. It's out of jealousy you say that. We love each other and we'll get married anyway, and money has nothing to do with it. That's the kind of thing he says to me. I can't live without him." The man waved his hand. "You can do what you want, you won't listen to your father anyway. You're as stubborn as a sheep, just like me." And he went out in annoyance. In fact, Fyodor Ivanovich was not at all far from the truth. Andrew did not intend to marry Alesya. He only liked another young, beautiful, and naive fool. and he bet his friends that a month to achieve intimacy with her. At stake, no less than 1,000,000 rubles. What can you do? High achievers can afford such entertainment. Andrew, confident in himself and his superiority, counted on a month to process this lover of poor cats and dogs. I had to play the heartwarming role and stroke these dirty and disgusting flea-ridden animals. He came on and off, pouring compliments, and worked his ass off to win the favor of a young beauty. But the dispute was coming to an end, and the girl stubbornly decided to be principled. They say, to the wedding, no way. This further incited Don Juana. It turns out, he will be her first man. This is now such a rarity. So Andrew decided to outsmart and deceive her into intimacy, and moreover in the presence of friends, because to lose a bet, it is above his ambitions. In addition, he is used to get his own, and decided to get this beautiful toy at any cost. She was too good, fine as a statuette, all innocent and not yet spoiled, unlike thousands of tempted-in-love ladies who, like vultures, flew to his money and were ready for anything at the slightest beckoning. It got boring and trivial. The young man's nefarious and insidious plan was set for the weekend. He had calculated every detail and was rubbing his hands together in anticipation of winning 1,000,000. When Alesya began to pack, throwing into her bag a blanket and a bathing suit and a beach hat, Fyodor Ivanovich felt some inexplicable anxiety in his soul. "Where are you going, daughter? Are you going with the volunteers again, or with friends?" "No, Daddy, Ninotchka invited me to a picnic far away, out of town. Can you imagine? Clean river, nature, guest house, romance. Let's swim, sunbathe, ride on a boat. I am 100 years in nature has not been. It's so hot around here. The asphalt is melting." And she even closed her eyes in anticipation of the expected recreation with her beloved. The surgeon turned pale. "Alesya, my dear, refuse, don't go. I sense trouble. Something's not right here. You've known that prick for a week. You don't know what he's up to. What kind of mischief could he be up to?" The girl frowned and stomped her foot. "Dad, you're doing it again? Don't start. What can happen? I'm not a kid anymore. Besides, I have my phone with me. I'll be sure to send you a picture of nature." Then my father asked, "Well, at least leave the address, no matter what. And if anything, call me right away." When they arrived at the place, the girl was just stunned by such beauty. Thick, lush greenery around, the cleanest air intoxicated and turned heads, birds sang in every way, woodpecker knocked on a tree and cuckoo crowed somewhere. The guest house was also lovely, with large windows, made in the old style. There was a generous table laid out next to the house, with a variety of sauces, vegetable salads, fruits and juices, and a bunch of different alcoholic beverages, and next to the crispy bread, lay on a tray strung with fragrant, juicy, steaming kebabs. Alesya got worried. "Are we not alone here? You said no one was here, just the two of us." The guy smiled wickedly. Two big, stout-looking guys came out of the cabin, grinned crookedly and waved their hands in greeting. For some reason the girl didn't like them right away. "Look, meet Sergey and Dan, my friends. They just helped me arrange everything here. Sit with us for a while in the company and leave surrendered vigilance, Andrew." The girl calmed down a little, but when the feast was in full swing, she began to understand something bad was planned here. All the guys, including Andrei, downed glass after glass. They kept pouring wine for her and insisted that she drink a little, and then they started making greasy, obscene, nasty jokes about the girl. Her sweetheart, instead of putting down the insolent, laughed along with them and openly mocked. Alesya was really frightened after all. There were 3 guys and she was alone, God knows where, out of town. Her heart ached and felt bad. Then the smart girl referred to the headache, deciding to buy time. "Andriush, my love, something I think I had too much. I'll go lie down for a while, I feel dizzy, okay?" And quickly yerked into the house, shutting the door in the room. I grabbed the phone feverishly. There was almost no connection, too far from the city, and wrote her father a message. To the second, "Daddy, you were right. Help me. Get me out of here." That was it. The screen went out. She wasn't even sure if it had gone away. Alesya sat on the bed in a panic, with her knees tucked up, and scolded herself with the last words. "What a fool. Idiot. My father told me, warned me." What am I going to do now? She could not get it into her head that her beloved could be such a scoundrel. It was inconceivable. There was a knock at the door, and Andrew asked, "Ailes, well, what are you stuck there? Open up, I'm alone. Don't worry, the guys have already left." So they made a little noise. "Don't sulk." "I'm sorry, let's make up." The experienced lover talked her out of it. The naive girl believed and opened happy. Phew. Thank God. I got myself all worked up. But to her horror, all three young men stood on the doorstep, grinning drunkenly and carnivorous, looking at the girl from head to toe. The beloved changed his face, and in a steely, soulless voice, said, "Well, chicken, you got it. Okay guys, I dibs first. An argument is an argument. As soon as I finish, I'll shout, and she's yours. Have as much fun as you like." They went out the door in displeasure. The scoundrel threw her on the bed and began unbuttoning her pants, whispering, "You'd better stay still and relax. You're going to love it." And he moved closer, breathing out his breath nastily in her face. To his surprise, the girl put up a fierce resistance. She screamed violently, fought back, biting and scratching. He had not expected the poor lamb to be so quick. The bastard went berserk and yelled, "Don't you want to be nice? Look, you asked for it. Don't cry afterwards. You'll beg for mercy when Seryoba and Dan come for you. They certainly won't be ceremonious." Suddenly, the door flew open with a crash, and some guy in camouflage and a vest burst into the room, dragged Andrew aside, punched him hard and shouted, "Get away from the girl, you rascal." A fierce scuffle ensued, and Seryobat and Dan ran up behind him and whacked the stranger with a log. Andrei was also badly hurt. His nose was broken and his eyebrow was bleeding. Poor Alesya crawled under the bed and screamed like mad. Thank God, lucky for her, there was the sound of cars and sirens, police, ambulances, and a frightened father who had called everyone to their ears after his daughter's message on the phone. The rapists were grabbed up and taken to a police car. Andrei hissed angrily, "So what? Yes, I will not get anything. Daddy will get me off. What's the big deal? We had a little fun," and he laughed gloatingly. Fyodor Ivanovich embraced his sobbing daughter, who was frightened to death, stroked her head and whispered in her ear, "That's all, my little kitten, it's all over now. Calm down." And the girl through her sobs confusedly tried to tell everything. "I'm such a fool, Daddy. If it weren't for that guy in camouflage, I don't know if I'd still be alive. It was like he fell out of the sky and saved me. Daddy, I was so scared." And she cried out again. All those involved in the fight were taken to the second city hospital. Fyodor Ivanovich understood. This bastard Andrei really will not be anything. Daddy millionaire will try. Surely, everyone everywhere is bought, they'll let the case slide, and that's it. And punished the offender must be, he could not otherwise, had to avenge his daughter. He put on a robe, a cap, a mask, and easily entered the room of the rapist, despite a bunch of guards. He was lying there, leaning against the wall. The doctor walked over, took a pre-prepared sharp scalpel from his pocket, and put it to the abuser's throat. He turned his eyes dazedly, did not even blink, and was afraid to move. Fyodor Ivanovich spoke first. "How does it feel to be in the place of a helpless victim, you bastard? Do you like it? Now I'll give you, my friend, the operation without anesthesia." Andrew moved his lips. "What operation? I'm already sewn up." The doctor smiled wickedly. "You choose. You want a lobotomy. I'll cut your skull open to air out your brain, or you want your privates cut off, so you won't touch girls anymore. I'm a surgeon, I'm used to it." He waved his hands and cried like a baby. "Don't, I beg you. Don't do that." From behind came silently Alesya. She was on duty in the next room to the bedside of his savior, and hearing his father's voice, came running to the noise. She took her father by the shoulders. "Daddy, you don't have to take the sin. He's not going to change anyway, and you're going to jail. I cannot lose you. He is not worth it. Fate will punish him, I'm sure of it." Fyodor Ivanovich came to his senses and took the knife away from Andrei's throat, and watched with disdain as the wet stain spilled under him. "Look at that, our hero has lost his confidence. You're scared, aren't you? Well, live, scoundrel." They went out, leaving the boy alone with his shame. Fyodor Ivanovich and Alesya got to know their savior and began to see him off. The boy's name was Roman, and he was the grandson of the local forester, Grandfather Zakharich. His parents died early, so his grandfather raised him, was both father and mother. He served in the army in a paratrooper battalion, even wanted to stay on a contract, but grandfather wrote that he was very sick, almost could not get up, so he came back to help and work instead of him until he recovered. He was passing by on his rounds, heard the girl's heartbreaking screams, couldn't remain indifferent, and decided to intervene. The young people became close, became friends. Roman supported Alesya, seeing that the girl was sad and depressed about what had happened. He shared with her his heartbreak. I too, Alesya, had a tragedy in my life. Since the 8th grade I had been in love with a girl, Irina, and I was ready to go into fire and into water for her. I couldn't wait for her. She promised to wait for me after the army, swore fidelity, and then my friends wrote that she was marrying my best friend. Turns out they've been playing games behind my back for a long time. I did not even want to live, I was sick to death. My comrades in arms took me off the noose, they talked me out of foolishness. So don't be sad, move on with your life. Not all such scoundrels, there are decent men too. And he blushed like a boiled crawfish. Fyodor Ivanovich, as a sign of gratitude, decided to examine grandfather Roman. After the examination he made Zakharich happy. Oh, sweetheart, you have a common ulcer. We'll operate on you and you'll live another 100 years. You'll have great-grandchildren. The old man got worried. What do you mean? I have already lived my life. Where am I going to get so much money? It must not be cheap, right? He frowned. The surgeon smiled. I will do for free in my clinic and provide royal care. I am proud of you for raising such a worthy son. So do not worry about anything, and he shook hands with the forester. Roman and Alesya began to meet, and the girl was amazed at the difference between him and that empty-headed Andrei. How she had not noticed it before, as if she were blind and deaf. Yes, Roma did not throw expensive gifts, he did not have jeeps and yachts, but he had much more. A huge, loving heart. When he hugged her, she knew for sure that he would not hurt her, would not betray her. The wedding was in full swing, and Fyodor Ivanovich was only too happy about it. Everyone was only waiting for Zakharich to recover after the operation, so that they could invite him to the feast. One evening the whole family was having tea in the kitchen, watching television. The evening news was on. What they saw shocked everyone. The announcer said in a mournful voice, "Today there was a tragedy. The young heir of a famous millionaire, Voronov Andrei, crashed while participating in a race. According to doctors' forecasts, the guy is alive, but will never walk again." And the images of the terrible accident flashed. There was a deadly silence. The first to break the silence was Alesya. What a horror! I even feel pity for him. He was so young. Fyodor Ivanovich objected. It's a shame on that boaster, he deserves it. I do not feel the slightest pity for him. And Roman answered wisely. Since he's alive, fate gave him a chance to come to his senses and live his life differently. Now it's up to him. God be with him. Fyodor Ivanovich habitually came to his beloved wife at her grave, sat down, and for the first time did not cry but smiled. Well, Ninotchka, now I am calm for our Alesya. With a husband like Roman, she will not be lost, she will be like a stone wall. Maybe I'll see my grandchildren soon too. You would have liked him, he's a great guy. Suddenly the sun shone brightly out of the clouds, the surgeon knew it was his wife rejoicing.